So I've been using Anchor for over a year now, and it's one of the easiest ways to make a podcast. It's free, and there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership if you want to or wish to. And it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And if you want to make a podcast, you can go to anchor.fm to get started. And it is very easy to do to make a podcast on there. And you have unlimited data memory on there as well. I would recommend using Anchor to make a podcast. Hi, I am Jennifer Purcell, and welcome to my podcast, Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge, where we will discuss, discover, and learn more about the challenges and triumphs of those with NLD and other learning challenges. I do have a website for this podcast, and it is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter account for the podcast. They are all under the same name, which is Living with NLD. I also have a YouTube channel for the podcast, which can be found by Googling the title of the podcast, which is Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. I would like to tell you about a nonprofit that I use for my research for this podcast. It is called the NLD Project, and I use their blog for my research. They are a nonprofit that is based in New York and is trying to get NVLD back on the DSM, and they provide many resources for people with NVLD on their website. I'll provide you with the website for them in the podcast description. All proceeds from the ads on this podcast will be donated towards the NVLD project. Please feel free to explore the other topics on the podcast, and hopefully you will learn something new from them. I hope you enjoy today's episodes. And today I am very excited to announce that BetterHelp is now sponsoring this podcast. I have had 7 years of therapy, so I know it can help change your life if you not only let it, but work on the personal goals that you set with your therapist. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are the greatest asset. And special offering to listeners of Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/. I'll put in the link in the podcast description for you. That's BetterHelp, HELEP. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast. Hi, I would like to announce that the next Facebook chat for people with NLD and other learning challenges will be on February 19th, which is the third Saturday of that month. And for those of you who are not familiar with this group, it is a safe space for you to talk about things that you may want to, and to have it be in a safe space that you can have people who support you with what you're talking about and be able to relate to it and listen to it. And it doesn't have to be about NLD or the other learning challenges that you might have, but it can be about that if you want it to be. So that's what that group is for. And then, so again, it's on February 19th, which is the third Saturday, and it's at 10 a.m. Pacific time zone, and it usually goes until about 11:30 Pacific time zone in the morning. So if you would like to attend that group, you could email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com, or you can go to Living with NLD on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter and message me about it. Thanks. Hello, everybody. So today's podcast will be about NLD and empathy versus sympathy. Do you ever have challenges with empathizing with someone or being sympathetic towards them? I know I do sometimes. One of the differences between empathy and sympathy are, quote, sympathy involves understanding from your own perspective, while empathy involves putting yourself in the other person's shoes and understanding why they may have these particular feelings, end quote. For me, I have always tried to be empathetic towards people that I can relate to with situations they have gone through. I have been through several challenging experiences in my life, to name a few: sexual abuse, being conned, being betrayed by my loved ones, my extended family, and being made fun of. I also try to be sympathetic towards people, even if I haven't experienced what they have, because I know that's how I would want to be treated. I listen to try to support I listen to try to support them and only offer advice if they're willing to hear or receive it. Sometimes people only need a listening ear, and that's enough for them. Everyone is different. Or sometimes they need a shoulder to cry on, or just somebody to vent to. Here's an article that talks about Katie's experience with a comment someone made about her ability to be empathetic. The article is titled "The Most Hurtful Comment Someone Said About My Nonverbal Learning Disability" by Katie D. The comment was, quote, "You lack empathy, you get it, but you lack empathy, and because of that, you don't belong here." The second half of that sentence is paraphrased, but it has stuck with me as the most hurtful thing anyone has ever said to me, said Katie. End quote. My reaction to this comment is that coworker probably doesn't know all the challenges Katie has been through because of NLD. They probably don't even know what the hell NLD is either. Excuse my French. If both or at least one of those things are true, they don't have the right to comment, in my opinion. But they probably think they do, because if they didn't, then why would they have said it? Katie did state the following about her quality of empathy. Quote, "I do not lack empathy in the least. What I lack is the ability to express it in a socially acceptable way. My social filter is defective, and I've been known to blurt out things most people think but shouldn't say. That's because I don't see the point of not expressing something I feel needs to be said. That doesn't mean I'm rude or insensitive, at least not on purpose. Just blunt at times, more so than I intend to be. And yes, I can realize when I've gone too far, and yes, I feel bad and apologize for it." End quote. I can relate to what Katie said about doing it socially because I also have challenges with that. I can be empathetic very easily when someone admits they have gone through something similar to my experiences. But the challenging thing is when it comes to analyzing their facial expressions to know when you've gone too far or not far enough. It is difficult for people with NLD to not overshare because they want to connect with others, like to talk about things they're interested in and often struggle to reach social cues. Another challenge is when you are trying to see if someone needs help or from you or not. I've realized if they look like they're lost or looking around for something, then yes, they probably do need help. But if they're thinking instead, they most likely don't need help and want to be left alone. Another article from The Minding, which shares about NLD and empathy, is titled What Having Nonverbal Learning Disability Means to Me by Kelly M. And for those of you who haven't heard of The Mighty before, it's a social media platform kind of like Facebook or Meta where you can blog about uh, your learning challenges or any challenge you may experience, whether that's chronic migraines or NLD or ADHD or a physical disability like um, being in a wheelchair or something like that. So, this article is about one of the reasons people with NLD are really empathetic is because they tend to be quote highly sensitive and thus highly empathetic end quote. I can relate to Kelly's statement because I am really sensitive to the point if I make a mistake, I dwell on it too much. I also tend to dwell on if I hurt someone's feelings too much because I wonder how I could have prevented myself from doing it in the first place. But sometimes it's how that person responds to what you said or did instead of you being blamed for it directly. If that is true, that can be hard for one with NLD to recognize because of that being a social nuance. And those are not easy for us to pick up on. Here's one more article that discusses NLD and the challenges NVLDers have, or NLDers, same thing. It is titled NLD from Idaho Learning Disabilities Association of Ontario. Quote, children with NVLD are usually interested in social relationships and have the capacity for empathy, but may report feeling isolated and complain that they do not have satisfying relationships with their peers. Children with NVLD can have trouble understanding humor, which may contribute to their social problems. Clinicians believe that children with NVLD may suffer from depression and anxiety disorders more than children without NVLD, although this clinical impression currently lacks strong empirical support. A significant disparity between verbal comprehension and perceptual reasoning abilities in which verbal skills are greater than perpetual skills is a necessary feature to make the NVLD diagnosis, end quote. This article does a really good job summarizing the main challenges that one with NLD typically experiences. That's why I picked it. And as I wrap up today, I would like for you to remember that NVLDers are capable of empathy and sympathy, but they may have a challenge of knowing when to not overshare because of not being able to read social cues as easily as neurotypicals. But we can learn and be taught how to read them. Please answer these questions if you feel called to. Do you ever have challenges with being empathetic or sympathetic towards someone? You can answer on Spotify, livingwithnld.com, YouTube, or email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com with the answer. Hope you learned something new today and enjoys and enjoyed today's episode. Talk to you next Friday. As I wrap up, there are some things I would like to share with you. I do have a website for this podcast. It is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook and Instagram page for this podcast. It is called Living with NLD. I will include the links for those in the description. In conclusion, I would like to hear from my audience. If you know individuals with NLD that I could interview for this podcast, please email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com. What are you interested in learning about NLD? I know I'm not an expert, but I do know I have the living experience of having it. I would like you to practice journaling about your gifts and differences. Also see if there is a way that you can make that difference become easier for you to do than it originally was. Thank you for listening today, and please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to it. Thank you. Bye.